Okay, so the last concept we're going to cover is the different levels that we're dealing with. We're dealing with three different levels. The three different levels are there's reality, then there's virtual reality, which is not really reality, and then there's spiritual. So these are the three different levels, and so obviously we're all operating here, right? This is where we are. And yet, we can enter into this space when we watch movies, video games. What else is here? Lies, right? So people can tell lies. They can participate in a virtual existence for a little while. And when we watch movies, we're watching something which is in a virtual realm. And yet we continue to be in the reality world, universe of reality. And so when somebody says something and they make up a story, which used to be movies or video games or something like that. Okay, let's start over. So the last concept for today is about the three different levels that we're dealing with. The three different levels are reality, this is where we are, right? And then there's virtual. People call it virtual reality, but it's not. It's just like this is like a fake, virtual fake existence. And then there's spiritual. And so we are also here. We are also here. And we can enter into this place too. So there's movement across these three levels. We live in reality. We can watch movies, which are not real. They're made of things to tell something fake. And then there's video games, which are fake. And then there's lies, which are also fake. And so a person can watch a movie, a person can tell a lie, and they can enter into this virtual world. But we continue to exist in the real world. And yet these lies will have an effect on reality. And so we can, out of our mouths, say something that's fake, that's part of this virtual world here. We can tell a lie, and then that can affect somebody here in the real world. These things also have an effect here in the spiritual world, because people are in reality, and reality and spiritual are actually one. And spiritual is actually the higher level of what is real. So, I'm not saying that this is all negative, but what I'm saying is that this is where we live now most of the time. Majority of the time, we're watching movies, we're online, playing video games, we're dealing with things which are kind of real, they seem very real, and a lot of work is being done to make this stuff more and more real. And so, the world in a video game, for example, is a lie, right? It's a completely fake world that's just images that are generated. But it's the overlap. They're trying to increase the overlap. And so in the video game, you have a controller, right? And your controller is here in your hand in the real world. But your controller makes changes in this fake world. And so they're trying to connect these worlds more and more. They want you to be immersed in this fake world. They want you to put those glasses on, the virtual reality glasses, where you get vibration feedback, where you get sounds. And so the sounds are real, right? The images are intense, the lights are real, they're coming to our eyes. So they're trying to blur the separation between these two worlds. And what I'm telling you is that when we're getting caught up more and more in this world, what we really should be doing is be moving towards more and more being immersed in the spiritual world. And so you see, for example, people just have a draw to be in the spiritual world. You see people that are famous and wealthy and powerful, a lot of times they get drawn into spiritual things. Famous authors that were very intelligent people like C.S. Lewis and G.K. Chesterton, they got caught up with the occult. So they were atheists, or they walked away from the church because they said, this is not true, or I don't need this. And then they lived their world here, they lived their life here in fancy, upper class, well-educated world, but they were drawn into the spiritual. But what kind of spiritual were they drawn into? They were drawn into occult. So this is dark, evil spiritual. But that's where people get drawn into if they're not drawn into the light and good spiritual. Why do people get drawn into this when they have so much? They have so much money, they have so much power. They could just stay here, right? In this world here, in reality, and cut off from the spiritual, like so many people say, oh, we don't need that. That's all myths and stories and legends. We don't need any of that. But people got drawn into that, and they continue, some of the most powerful people will continue to be drawn into this spiritual aspects, because this is the most attractive and it most closely aligns with how we are as human beings. And so people get drawn into this stuff, and that's why even the highest levels of tech, for example, nowadays, where you get these tech companies, they're pushing. Now everything they're talking about is AI, and what is AI? AI is a spiritual thing. Using smartphones is a spiritual thing. Because the things that you're seeing on your smartphone and the way that it's controlling your life, that's controlling you in the spiritual world. And so if we only look at reality and we think that this is all that exists, and we cut this off here, and we think, oh, we're only here. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in the devil. I don't believe in anything else. I think I'm just here in this world here. And you're obviously going to be interacting here with the virtual world. But if you only exist and you cut that side off and you only exist in this side, and you just go to work and you just come home and watch movies and watch TV and made up stories, then you're not dealing with the most important and most valuable thing. And you're going to feel bored. You're just going to feel bored. And a lot of the pain that people feel is because they're bored out of their minds, because they're not dealing with the most important thing, which is spiritual. The most important thing for us is the spiritual. And so avoid this. If you avoid this, you're going to get bored and depressed. You're going to come down and down and down. You're going to come looking for this. You're going to get stuck in your smartphone and your AI. Because why? Because these things are spiritual, and they're drawing from the dark problem side of spiritual. This is why even movies have to draw from the spiritual. Movies have to draw from this. If you watch a movie that has nothing to do with the spiritual world, you're not going to enjoy it. You're not even going to be interested in it, because your interest comes from the fact that something is spiritual. The level at which something is spiritual shows how interested you're going to be in it. Why do people like watching horror movies which are mostly about demonic things. Horror movies are mostly about dark, evil things that the occult deals with. Why do people love watching? Why is there always a horror movie at the movie theater? And so many more and more movies. There's always money to make more horror movies because it deals with spiritual reality. And spiritual reality is the most powerful. It's the one that draws us the strongest for a reason, because it's the most important. But this is not the important part. This is what we should be fighting against. This is the important part that we should be embracing. And so all of this coexists, but this is the important thing, and this is trying to be deleted for us, and this is where we're supposed to be immersed, is in this fake world here that's created, which is drawing from something which is real and evil and terrible. That's drawing into AI and smartphones and streaming services. That's pulling us into this fake world. And that's because the occult and dark, evil, spiritual forces, they love this virtual world because they are so, in a sense, they're so weak and so fake because they're based on evil and lies that they love to deal in this world. And they want to make themselves more and more tangible. You know, they want to, it's like a possession. It's literally like possession. It's that which is not visible and has no actual ability to have an effect on the real world. It wants to possess a real body because it's real. It wants to have control of real things. And so this force loves to have control of real things. This force wants to have control of real things, but where is it going to come through? It's going to come through smartphone AI, it's going to come through movie and video game, and then it's going to pour overwhelmingly into our reality. Because it's more and more trying to increase the visual aspects, the real aspects to us. It wants to be seen, it wants to be heard, it wants to be admired, it wants to be talked about and respected. But we need to look for this. And until we look for this, we're going to be in pain. Most of the pain that we feel comes from the fact that we're not dealing with spiritual things. We just go to work, we come home and watch movies, and you have to drink and you have to smoke marijuana, or you have to just immerse yourself in things to ignore the fact of how much pain you're in. And the pain you feel is because we're not having an interaction with the spiritual, which is what we were meant to do, is the most valuable thing that we can have. And this is why, for movies, for example, the most captivating, some of the most captivating stories of the last couple of years came from Star Wars and Marvel. And Disney bought these because they were so valuable. Why were these stories so valuable? Because these stories are based on spiritual truth. So the last concept that I wanted to cover today is to say that I'm going to be talking about movies quite a bit, and I'm going to be using movies as an example, because with movies you can talk about spiritual things and illustrate aspects very powerfully, because people love these, but a lot of the words that you use to talk about this, they're already trained to hate. They're already trained, people's brains have been trained to shut down when you talk about this. So a lot of times I'm going to be talking about movies to illustrate concepts so that your brain doesn't shut down, because what I'm actually pointing to is this. Because this is life-saving and life-giving. This is eternal life. Eternal life is available to us and it's here, but we're avoiding it, or we're being drawn into this cycle of these other things that are feeding into our reality. But what's most important is that reality and spiritual are the same, and spiritual is the highest form of reality. That which is not seen is more real than that which is seen. Until one day we see that which was not visible to our eyes. One day we're going to see that, and we're going to see everything that we were told was there we're going to be able to see it one day. And that day we're going to know all this. But until then, we have to wrestle with these things, and we have to figure it out and learn from each other and delve into and dig through these truths and be able to fight for them. Because make no mistake, this is a battle. This is a crazy battleground. So even if you feel like you're just in an okay life and everything's very fine, don't be bored, because you're in the middle of a war, and we're going to be talking about how we're going to fight and deal with that.